Yeah. Hi.
Hey.
Hi-oh. I'll be lurking. Good luck, friends. Thanks, Serena. Appreciate you lurking. It's nice to have lurkers. That's when you know you hit the big time. When you got lurkers.
Yes.
Do you know what a lurker is?
I imagine it's somebody that lurks.
Yes. Well, in the streaming business, a lurker is someone that is on your stream, but they're not really watching. They probably just have you turned down, or they got it in another window or something.
Mm-hmm.
But they're in there, thus giving you the views and showing that you have somebody in your stream.
Yes.
So lurkers are cool. We have a lot of lurkers on my stream as well, which is totally fine. A lot of people that whenever we get down to the voting part of our stream, they just don't vote because they're just watching or they have it on somewhere, which is fine. Lurkers is what makes Twitch work. So thank you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about comic books.
All right.
What do we got?
Well,
we got a lot of comic books.
so
I'm excited for this one.
There's a lot to go through.
This one's going to be fire. Right
last week was the big week. We had so
big.
much to talk about.
There was a lot of stuff.
And I went into this week saying like, there's no way it'll be as much.
There was no way.
And it's not as much, but it's still a lot.
Yeah.
First things first.
There's
a new previews that comes out.
Previews. Yeah.
So previews is the catalog of all the new stuff that will be available. For this one is the previews for October. So this is the stuff that's available in the next few months, and it's all stuff that's available through Diamond Distributors. And I just want to take a second. So there's a lot of books in here from like we're looking at some Image comics here. Some trade paperbacks, but I just want to. I don't normally pull out the previews, but there's one little book that I'm pretty excited about. It's in the previews right here. There's this book coming out from Scout Comics. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's called American Chop Suey, and you have it on pretty good authority, my own, that it's a pretty good book. You can trust me on this one. If you look, this is actually. I don't want to be coy about it for too much longer. The creators of this book is my good friend Ed Bickford. He created and illustrated the book, and the writer is myself, Aaron Walther. That's me. So this is my book coming out in December, American Chop Suey from Scout Comics. You can see it in previews for October. Go to your comic book store, put it in an order, and make sure you get yourself a copy. Yeah. All right, now let's talk about the stuff that's actually coming out tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, start as always. I didn't think it was going to be like a regular.
Is this a facsimile?
This is a facsimile. I thought this was something we would do like occasionally. Like
now it's like a thing.
Like every week there's a new facsimile.
Now it's a thing that people are into.
I think Marvel knows that I want these facsimiles.
Are you the only one buying them?
No, I'm not. They sell pretty good. I think. I don't know. I'll save the speculating for the message boards and whatever. Sure. But these older comics, they seem to sell pretty okay.
Yeah.
But so this one, facsimile of the Flash. This is Flash issue number 105, the first appearance of the Mirror Master. This book, I'm sure it is coming out this week because there is also a new Flash series just starting, a new Flash number 1, which we'll talk about when we get to it. But it does make an interesting contrast of reading an old Silver Age Flash, and then you can kind of compare it to a new issue that's coming out. So the paper,
it's got the right paper.
I know. I've said it.
The right paper.
I say it every time. DC, look, I don't even have to hold it at an angle. You can see it clearly because there's no gloss.
It's nice and matte.
DC knows how to do their facsimiles. Here's my favorite thing about old Flash comics. I'm actually not super well versed in the Flash. I've not read a lot of Flash.
Yeah, no one cares about the Flash.
Well, that's not entirely true. There we go. There's a lot of people that like the Flash.
There we go.
But I do like the old Flash. He had his costume stored in a little ring on his finger, and he would like press a button, and the costume would pop out like an inflatable lifeboat.
Interesting.
And then like it would just like put itself on him. So it's like spring out of his ring. It was like so compressed into a tiny little ring on his finger.
Who puts that back in every time? Does he?
He does. He's super speed.
Yeah, like if it takes a normal person like 2 hours, to
right?
He can just. It takes him like a second.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much it.
That makes sense.
But yeah, I like that.
What's the Flash's thing like? Say you cared about the Flash, and you were trying to get me to read it. What would you say?
So actually, that's a fair question. I think the biggest appeal for the Flash is that he is kind of before Marvel became a thing. No, well, I mean he's fast. That's his superpower. But it is really like science fiction based in a lot of his stuff. So that's really what kind of kicked off the Silver Age, is when a lot of these superhero comics started getting a sci-fi angle to them. So Flash, the Silver Age Flash, Barry Allen, he's a police scientist, and so he like does things with chemicals, and there's a really like science focus on like that's how he gets his powers. His lightning strikes a bunch of chemicals and they splash on him, and they make him fast.
Wow.
And it's a little silly, but at least it's more than just saying it's magic. Like they're trying to expand on it. And with Flash, there's a lot of time travel. There's a lot of it's a little bit, just a little bit, not too much more. I wouldn't say it's the equivalent of the science fiction of the day, but it leans more in that direction. And so it has like the superhero drama of him trying to keep his secret identity while trying to date his girlfriend, but also it was one of the earlier books, like Green Lantern was the same thing when they rebooted Green Lantern into like hard sci-fi. And that was the biggest appeal, which was pretty new at the time for superheroes, especially. Like Superman was always just like alien,
just an alien
silly
dude.
stuff.
Yeah.
Batman was originally like the gothic noir. Like he had his roots in pulp detective stuff. But it didn't really, like, it was the Flash and Green Lantern that really kind of ushered in like the science fiction angle to superhero comics. So that's kind of Flash's legacy. And like even like on that subject, what I like about these facsimiles is that they reprint the entire issue in its original form. And so
facts.
Flash issues had these flash facts, which were like little pieces of information, mostly related to speed in some way. So I like this one here. The motorist who speeds up to reach a filling station before his gasoline supply gives out is generally fooling himself. Less mileage is obtained from a gallon of gasoline when the automobile is driven at high speed than when it is driven at moderate speed. Did you know that, Dan?
I feel like maybe I had an idea.
Well, if you don't know how cars work, you have to feed gas into the engine.
I don't know anything.
So if you're trying to maintain a high speed, you're constantly pumping gas into it.
You're wasting the gas.
Yeah, so you better to work slowly and kind of drive downhill also. But anyway, that's enough of the Flash.
That's the Flash.
Mirror Master is silly. It is kind of funny because like I said, it's science fiction.
Master of mirrors.
But it's interesting because it was like before. It's science fiction of the time, so it was before a lot of the modern language of things were invented. So like effectively, what he does is he creates holograms, but it was before that term was a thing. So he's like, I take pictures of people at different angles, and then we print them. They're talking about it in like photography terms, to create a fully realized person that's basically like a hologram, like a being made of light. But the term didn't exist, so it's just kind of interesting. Like that's why I like reading the old stuff. Moving on. Flashing forward a couple of decades into the 80s.
Micronauts.
The Micronauts. This was another. Last week I think we talked about Rom Space Knight, which was. It looks like
sound like Darth Vader a little bit.
A little bit of Darth Vader. It was a toy line from 1978. You know what? It probably popped up suspiciously right after the Star Wars movie blew up, and most importantly, the Star Wars toys blew up. And so they put out this toy line called Micronauts, and somebody at Marvel was like, "Hey, that would make a good comic book."
Is this also a facsimile?
This is a facsimile. That's what.
Let me ask you something.
Yes.
Is this how much it cost back in the day?
No, it is not.
Okay,
they changed that. There's a few things like that. You can see the Marvel logo. Heck, even the barcode. Like I think I don't remember if we've talked about that, but like older comics didn't have barcodes on them. What? Because barcodes didn't get. They really didn't get put into practice until the 70s.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So.
Well, geez.
But yeah, so this is another sci-fi comic book series that's based off of a toy line. Definitely aimed at kids that like Star Wars. But it's nice.
Boy, the page is glossy.
You know what? I'm trying to be positive, but I agree. DC they know what they're doing with their paper stock, whereas Marvel, it's not working for me as well as I want it to.
They're not doing it.
But anyway, I've not really ever read Micronauts. It seems like such a like a relic of its time, like the Star Wars ripoff type of a thing, you know. So I am kind of curious to take a peek at it and see how it holds up. Like if it's anything more than just like.
I mean, I'm interested in all these characters.
You know what?
Like, what's up with his? What's up with his?
He looks like kind of like a robot with robot
nips.
nip-nops there.
What's?
I don't know.
Why is he doing that?
Yeah.
What's his situation? And this guy's like a praying mantis.
Like
or
yeah,
something.
like a space bug.
Yeah,
you
space
know,
bug.
they
So
they didn't want to put a Wookiee.
what's
Like
his
that would
deal?
have been too
Yeah,
obvious.
that's like don't cover him in fur, make a bug,
make him a bug. Yeah.
bug him up. And this is like a one-piece
Yeah,
situation.
yeah,
like,
yeah.
What's going on?
Looks like
It's really, this
Kinda
it's odd.
it's like I said, it's very clearly somebody
It's odd.
looked at the success of Star Wars and was like, let's just like do
Let's
our
do
own
that.
version of
He's
that.
got like a sword here.
Yeah, it's this,
like
a fiery space
like a
sword,
space sword of some kind.
and then a laser pistol.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
yeah. Still looks neat. Looking forward to
That's
reading it.
That's something.
A few other books here that are coming out tomorrow. I haven't read yet, but I always like to point them out when they're here. A Man and His Cat. I think we
Man.
talked about this.
I feel like
Many
we did.
months ago.
Is he like a hitman?
No, that's something completely different.
Whoops.
This-
There's just a lot to keep track of.
That's true. There are. This one is just a very wholesome. It's a wholesome overload, in
Mhm.
fact,
Oh.
of just a story of a widower
Mhm.
who is an old guy, and he lives alone, and he's lonely, and he gets a cat that nobody wants, and together they form a friendship.
Yeah.
And the cat is just drawn to be the most adorably stupid-looking cat. Like
I love him.
yeah, he's great. And a lot of the humor in the book just comes from the art, the way the cat is depicted. And it is aggressively sentimental and cute. And I do love it.
Yeah.
A lot of the humor does play up the whole.
But you haven't read it.
Well, sorry, this is volume 9. I've only read the first 8 volumes. This comes out tomorrow. But I do really like it. They play up a lot of the humor of like how liking cats is a very feminine trait.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
that's a joke that gets played in a lot of Japanese manga a lot. Just like dogs are masculine, cats are feminine. So if you like cats, you're not tough.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of humor derived about that.
Gotcha.
You know,
Interesting.
and
Interesting.
everybody's like secretly everybody loves a cute kitten. You know, deep down, even though you can't admit it publicly.
Yeah.
Because we're all tough guys here.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So this is what if you haven't looked at Man and His Cat before, if you like cute cat comics,
Yeah.
I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
It's a good one. Another one I haven't had a chance to read yet, Doom Patrol. I will continue to sing the praises of Doom Patrol every month that it comes
You like
out.
The Doom Patrol
I
right
like
there.
the Doom Patrol. They're killing it. The art by Chris Burnham is just great.
Oh.
I love, like, right there, bam,
Look at this
Elephant
guy.
Man
Elephant
getting
dude.
punched by Robot Man.
Man.
I love
That'll happen.
it's a weird looking book. It's funny. It's full of action and adventure. And like I will say it again and again, it looks amazing. Chris Burnham's really good. This book is delivering to me what I want from the X-Men that the X-Men aren't giving me right now. So I'm gonna cry.
Yeah.
Maybe not on stream, but I am gonna cry when we reach that final 7th issue. And I'm gonna be very disappointed if DC doesn't decide to do more with it. Highly recommend Doom Patrol. Let's make more of it happen.
Get you some Doom Patrol.
Another one that's
Ooh.
on my pull list that I haven't had a chance to read yet, Conan the Barbarian #3.
Yeah.
This is one of the variant covers. I don't like to be super critical on this stream.
Oh,
I don't
sure.
know if you noticed this.
Yeah, no, you're
But,
very level.
I'm a very level-headed guy, but I usually go for the variants for Conan because I prefer the variants where they have the classic logo on them because I do not like the new logo. I don't like it so much I'm not even showing you an issue that has the new logo. It's not that good.
Real.
But no, it's a good looking cover. It looks like a classic Conan comic.
Yeah.
The art inside by Rob De La Torre is just incredible. Like he's great Conan artist. It just looks like classic Conan.
Old school.
Yep. And the stories, Jim Zub, he continues to bring it. He's kind of got a reputation for being kind of a comedy writer. Like he's written a lot of comedy books, but he's just going straight, channeling his inner Robert Howard for Conan, and it's just like really good. Just like the Conan you know and love is in this book. So I'm sure if you're a Conan fan, you've already heard about this, and you've probably heard people talking about it, saying how great it is. I'm telling you,
it's actually
that great. You should definitely read it. Pick it up, keep it going.
So,
this is
other people told you it was good. We don't believe them, but once you say
that's
good,
right. I'm the authority on.
Then
on
we
the
know it's actually good.
That's correct. All right, let's
A superhero's journey.
So this is a big.
That's the Watcher.
That's the Watcher.
I
You
know
got
the
it.
Watcher.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is a special book.
Like a big baby.
This is put out by Marvel Arts, which is not specifically by Marvel Comics. It's like a license that they have through Abrams Comic Arts. And I think, was it last week that we talked about the Fantastic Four book by Alex Ross?
Yeah.
So this is the same thing. This is a similar thing where this publisher just gets artists to do something, and they kind of have a license to do Marvel stuff. And so Alex Ross did his big homage to Jack Kirby and the Fantastic Four. This is from Patrick McDonnell, who does the comic strip Mutts, and which you've probably seen in newspapers. He draws the little dog, tiny little dog. So this is an interesting book. I actually read this one. We will have it available for sale tomorrow, but I got a preview copy a few weeks ago and read it. And this is like equal parts new material, like it's a love letter to Marvel Comics, but it also is repurposing art from the original Jack Kirby books. So this is kind of a big love letter to Jack Kirby, and you know that I love Jack Kirby, and I love letters to Jack Kirby.
You love an homage.
I love an homage, and so this is it's kind of an interesting thing because what he does is he takes it's also Ditko. It's Kirby and Ditko because Spider-Man is a part of it, and he basically cuts up panels and repurposes them into a new-ish story. Kind of follows the old stories, but he kind of creates a single new story. But it's also intercut between his artwork. So there's like he does some new artwork alongside the old artwork, and it's just about how Marvel Comics, like the early Marvel stuff, changed his life and how influential it was on him as a kid. And just how much he loves it, and how
it's really cool,
inspiring it is. But then he also kind of uses the old art to repurpose it into a new, interesting story. So if you like the classic Marvel stuff, that's his thing. That's really next to Jack Kirby's thing. Yeah, it's very charming. It's
not very often we have a charming book.
Yeah, I know.
You're Jack Kirby. I've never heard you talk about it.
I think it was just the last episode I talked about another project that repurposed Jack Kirby art into.
We might have, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much like every.
We might have went Kirby on it. We might have went on a Kirby tangent.
Yeah, more than once. But this is another one.
Every once in a while.
I looked at this book and I kind of like immediately I was like, interesting. But there's a lot of love letters to Kirby out there.
Influential guy.
He's very monumental, you might even say. So, but this is an interesting book. I think it's a casual read, which is kind of nice. But if you appreciate the older art, you can kind of admire that. But and it's neat to see how it is like repurposed and put back together to form something new.
Yeah.
So you can read it and be like, oh, I like these old stories, but it is something new. It's an interesting little art project. And I do recommend it. That might surprise you, Dan.
That's right. It's worth the fight. Wait, how much is it?
This one is a $30, but it's a nice.
It's worth the $30.
It's a nice hardcover.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's oversized. It's bigger. It's bigger than your average comic book, so you can really appreciate it.
Really get into it.
Put
it on your coffee table and start talking about it.
It actually is really like a coffee table type of book where you can you can read through the whole thing and you'll get a nice story, but you can also just kind of casually browse it and just see the different art.
Right.
You can experience it on many different levels like that.
Wow.
So it's an interesting book. All right, next up, some other exciting books that I've read. You know what? So I'm so excited to talk about this book, Godzilla War for Humanity.
Are you being serious right now?
I'm being dead serious.
Okay, sometimes I can't tell.
Sometimes I'm deadpan, it's true. But I didn't get to talk about issue 1 of this book when it came out because we had a scheduling conflict and we weren't able to do an episode the Tuesday before this issue came out like we normally do. And then we did our episode on Wednesday, and we had already sold out by the time we did our episode.
Well, that's cool.
So this,
because of all the Godzilla fans around.
Well, you know what? There are a lot of Godzilla fans out there, and I'm hearing this from multiple Godzilla fans, not just me, that this is actually one of the best Godzilla books published in a long time. I've heard that from multiple sources. Like this is really it's a Godzilla book you gotta get. This cover here, this is the variant cover by the artist Jake Smith.
Mhm.
I've met Jake a few times. He's a young up and coming go-getter of an artist. Like,
Oh.
he's really great.
Oh.
He does most of all this himself. Like, the colors are really vibrant. I think I saw somebody describe this as it was such a novel concept to have a Godzilla comic that's like really fun and colorful
Mhm.
and just like reminds you of how exciting the movies can be,
Yeah.
rather than just being like a drab, serious, like
Mhm.
Godzilla is serious metaphor
Oh,
for
sure. Yeah.
It's
you know.
it's like I think it's a thing that can happen with a lot of comic books where some creators. I mean, I don't have to go on to my whole lecture about the
Why not?
I think a lot of people in the comic book industry have this self-loathing
Mhm.
about it being a comic book, and
Mhm.
they have to try really hard to prove that it's not for kids.
Oh, sure.
And that's been a thing that's been like stuck. It's been
it serious.
It's been a chain on the industry
Yeah.
since like the 1980s, where people are just like trying really hard to
Yeah.
prove that it's really serious.
Yeah. Social commentary needs to be involved.
Exactly.
It has
It's
to have a point.
It's literature.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor, and
Yeah.
it's not just fun. And it can be both. I'm
Mhm.
not saying that it shouldn't be
Yeah.
serious. I'm just saying when you there's a danger when you try too hard at that, it loses all of the fun of it. Of like, I do want to just enjoy a Godzilla story that can be exciting and
I
fun.
just want to see him destroy Tokyo.
Exactly. So this is one of those books where it's written by Andrew McLean, who writes and draws a comic that I really like called Headlopper,
Mhm.
and drawn by Jake Smith, as I said. Looks great,
That's wild.
and there's also a lot of great character work in it too, where the main character is somebody who's like obsessed with Godzilla, and she's a scientist, and she's like growing up to study Godzilla, and she gets recruited into this team that's basically just tracking kaiju and monitoring them and trying to try out different technologies and stuff to how to combat them. And it's just really great. Like, it looks amazing. Great monster fights, as you can see. I don't want to show too much of it, but
Yeah, don't spoil it.
Jake's art is just really on point. It's, like I said, it's vibrant, it's colorful, it's fun. It's my favorite Godzilla book in a long, probably since that what was the one I showed a few weeks ago, the hardcover that came out, James Stokoe's Godzilla. That's another one that it captured just like it was a little raw, like the raw Godzilla roarer. It was like his artwork is different than Jake Smith's, of course, but like they both capture just like an energy to the characters and to the comic page. Like it's really good stuff. This is top grade comics. If you're a Godzilla fan, you owe it to yourself. You need to get yourself a copy of what's it called? War for Humanity. Godzilla War for Humanity.
Get this book. I don't know.
Get
what
it.
it's called,
Whatever it is. I read it. I'm so
Great
excited. I read it too fast. I
Yeah.
can't. I just don't even get the
Can't
title.
remember
I
what
just
happened
skip
on the
right
front
past
page.
it. I'm just like, that's Jake's
He's
Godzilla
got the
book.
time for that.
Yeah.
He's got time.
All right. So
Cool. What do we got?
now we're moving into the less exciting territory for myself.
Exciting.
So this is Ultimate Invasion.
Okay.
I'm only talking about this because it is it's important with like the quotes around it, because this is we talked about issue 1 when it came out a few weeks back or months back even, and it was the reboot of the Ultimate Universe. And I think I talked about how important the Ultimate books were when they came out in the early 2000s, because they set the standard that would become the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Okay.
So a lot of the Marvel books, a lot of the stuff in the Marvel movies were lifted directly from the Ultimate books, like Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. It was taken directly from the Ultimate books. And so the Ultimate line has been canceled for a few years now. It kind of petered out, and there's a lot of reasons why. You don't need to hear a lecture about the Ultimate books. But this book is drawn by Brian Hitch, who was one of the original Ultimate artists in the Ultimate series. The Ultimates is the one that he drew. And it's written by Jonathan Hickman. And Jonathan Hickman is one of those like top tier, very popular and successful writers. And I can't say nothing he's done has ever really appealed to me in any strong way. It's like he's not like a bad writer, but I didn't talk about the other 3 or the other 2 issues in this series for a reason. Yeah, because it's just not really my thing.
It's not really doing it.
I think it's overwritten.
It's not blowing up your skirt.
No, it's too slow.
Wow.
It takes too long to get where it's going, and I don't want to really spoil anything. Yeah. But like what this four, it's a 4-issue series. This is issue 4, and what it really is just it just exists to set up the next line of Ultimate Universe books that they're rebooting. Okay. So this is my criticism of Jonathan Hickman, which is these issues. This isn't a story. Like there's no like beginning, middle, and an end. This is a bunch of stuff that happens with no resolution that you then have to read the next book series to kind of find out where it's going to go.
That's kind of weird.
And it's not that I'm opposed to long form plotting, but it's the nature of the business where you have to set up like just this 4-issue series, and then it'll lead into a new number 1, which is a new jumping on point for people, which will then lead into another new number 1, instead of it just being a 12-issue or 20-issue series, of just whatever. So
could you read the next series without having read this and know what's going on, you think?
Probably, because pretty much...
So then it's pointless.
I mean, I didn't want to be the one to say it because we're trying to sell comics here. But it does feel like everything in this book could be summed up.
You got to have it.
It could be just right. I do think a lot of the stuff in this book could be summed up in like a 1-page recap at the beginning of the next series.
Like just the 2 characters speaking about it.
Yeah.
You remember when you did the thing? Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, but now it's like 4 issues of that. There's
interesting.
It looks good. I do like Brian Hitch's art a lot, and so it looks like a classic Ultimate book. And I will even say that I think Hickman is the right writer to reboot the Ultimate line. Like the original writers for the line was like Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Miller and Warren Ellis, who are guys, they're older now, and none of them are really, they're all doing their own thing. Like Mark Miller's got his own line of books, Miller World, and all his Netflix series. And Brian Michael Bendis is kind of, I don't even know what he's doing. I think he was working at for DC for a while. And Warren Ellis has been lying low for a lot of personal reasons that we don't have to get into here. So I think Hickman's the right guy to do this. I wish it could just be like 12-issue series. Here's what's happening instead of this like tease and because I feel like the tease it allows more wiggle room to just kind of like fill space. Whereas like if you were just like 12 issues, do your story, you'd have to be a little more focused on how you plot it out. Yeah. But now it's like, okay, 4 issues. Okay, we'll just put in whatever.
Filler,
and then we got 4 more issues, do some, I don't know. That's me just kind of ranting and rambling.
My ultimate invasion here at Fantasy Books and Games.
It has been selling. Like
you're gonna love it. It's great.
I don't mean to imply that people aren't gonna read it. Jonathan Hickman certainly has his fans, and I think there's a lot of people that are just excited for the reboot of the Ultimate Universe. I think that's another thing too that I kind of like put a bad taste in my mouth was the first issue. The way they advertised it, they really advertised that Ultimate Spider-Man was going to be a main character, and he wasn't. It was like a total bait and switch. He was in the first issue, and then not the rest of the book.
Oh.
And so this gets into the whole like plotting and marketing thing where, because the other reason I wanted to talk about this is because they are talking about launching a new Ultimate line, and Jonathan Hickman has been announced to be the writer of a new Ultimate Spider-Man series. But they haven't announced like what that is. Like, is it going to be Miles Morales? Is it going to be like a new Peter Parker? They don't know. It's just Ultimate Spider-Man is being rebooted and Jonathan Hickman is writing it. So there is a sense of like, you should read this Ultimate Invasion to kind of know where he's going to get to the Ultimate Spider-Man book that he's going to do next year. But I felt like it was just kind of a lot of hot air filler. But if you...
There it is.
It's got Brian Hitch's art, so it looks like an Ultimate book. He's using a lot of his old designs for the characters. So it does like... It kind of like tricks you into thinking you're reading the old Ultimates, but you're not. It's a completely different thing, which I think I don't want to talk too much more about this. I think was kind of the point. There was like a bait and switch element to it,
so where you're not happy about that.
Yeah, and I don't know if I am the only one, but I have fond memories of reading the Ultimate books back in the early 2000s. They were a very important thing at the time. I think they're responsible for pulling Marvel and DC in another way out of their creative rut that they were in after after Marvel's horrible bankruptcy in the mid-90s. It just But anyway, I'll be curious. I say all of this about this book, but I'm probably still going to read the next ones just because I got to know where
You
like
gotta know what's happening.
I gotta know, like, is he gonna be able to pull this off or not? Even though I will probably complain about it the entire time,
Sweet.
like classic true comic book fans.
Yeah, like fans of any fans.
Yeah,
Honestly,
honestly, yeah. Complaining about it is like part of the fun.
That's part of the hobby.
It's true.
That's
It's
part of
absolutely
fandom.
part of the hobby. Yeah.
Oh, hey, it's Void
So
Rivals.
Void Rivals. So I haven't
Yeah,
really been
yeah.
following this one. I
A
haven't
fan
been
of great
keeping up with
comics.
this one. Yeah,
Yeah.
we are fans of great comics.
Yeah.
Talking about comic book plotting, I think the story that Kirkman has set up in this is just fine. The art looks really good. This is another one where I think the art is kind of carrying it
Mm-hmm.
more than the story.
Yeah.
And that would mean more to me if there was more things to draw other than characters just kind of talking to each other
Yeah.
while in a spaceship. There's not as many great visuals. And then every now and then there's like a scene. I don't want to spoil.
That sounds.
There's like a spoiler, but it's like every now and then there's a scene that reminds you that this is in the same universe as the Transformers.
Mhm.
But it's not really like a part of the
Like, not
story. It's like
interesting.
it's just like
Yeah.
2 pages of like
They got to remind.
they got to remind you. And I wish it was integrated a little bit better. Like he's trying to like play the long game
Yeah.
of like teasing you of like
Yeah.
where's this going? What's going to happen?
Are we? Is it keeping your interest?
and
up?
we're 4 issues in, and I'm kind of losing my patience with it. So I'll definitely read the next issue,
Uh-huh.
but I really expect to see some Transformers tied into this in some way, in
Yeah,
a
like,
meaningful way.
Why show them off if they're not really a part of it or they're not important to the plot?
Right,
Maybe?
which makes me feel like it's just cheap marketing of like,
Yeah.
hey, because there is a new Transformers book coming out soon, and there's a preview of that in here.
Oh, so it's like
which-
tied in.
So it's probably tied into that. So like there's we'll just show the advertisement here for Transformers. It's drawn by Daniel Warren Johnson, who is an awesome artist. I'm not even a huge Transformers guy, really. I was really more G.I. Joe
Mhm.
than Transformers. But I think he's the right guy to do Transformers, and I think it'll look really cool. The one thing that the Transformers have always had going for them was just fun, cool designs. Like
Right. Yeah.
it's exactly the type of thing you just see like a big truck and you're like, man. Like boys just look at giant trucks and
Yeah.
you're just like, hell yeah.
I think
know?
hell
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Guys will look at this and think hell
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what Transformers are.
That's what Transformers is.
It really is.
Appealing to the male fantasy
Right. Of
Of-
big trucks.
of big trucks,
big robots and
that
big trucks.
transform into robots.
Right. It really doesn't get much more of a male fantasy than that.
It does not. It does.
So, but yeah, it just
Oh, man.
with this Void Rivals book, like it's okay, but like
Where's
it
it
was
going?
like set up like that was a big
That was the
Easter
big
egg.
reveal.
That was a big reveal. Like,
Mhm.
oh my god, the Transformers are in this book, but then they're kind of not, and so now I just feel like
I feel tricked.
I feel like going back to what I was
feel
saying about
bamboozled.
going back to that Ultimates book where
Mhm.
they're like Miles Morales is going to be a key component, and then
Mhm.
he just isn't. And I try not to be cynical about marketing. I understand we all got comics to sell, us included, but
True.
it's hard not to feel deflated.
Like a little
you
bit.
know,
Yeah,
a little
rug
little
pulled
let
out
down.
from under you.
Exactly, yeah.
Anyways,
But-
try and get Void Rivals here at Fantasy Books.
Yes, this is another one you can get. I mean, yeah,
It's all going to turn out.
It's all going to turn out.
Ooh, hey, I like
So, hey, do you remember?
that. Maybe.
So me complaining about X-Men books, how I don't really like them, and I love X-Men, but I
Mhm.
haven't been. I keep going in and out of the new series.
Yeah.
We talked about Jean Grey #1 last month, and
Mhm.
I said that one like totally suckered me in
Mhm.
because it's written by classic X-Men writer Louise Simonson.
Mhm.
And so I read the first issue and
Yeah.
was pleasantly surprised. I really liked it. So I decided issue 2 comes out tomorrow. I gotta read it. This is
Yeah.
a variant cover by Peach Momoko,
Yeah.
drawing the classic Phoenix. I kind of really, really, really like this.
Oh, good.
This issue
Kind of really, really, really like.
well, in many ways, I feel like it's just a glorified what if story.
Uh-huh.
So this story is what if it's not really a spoiler because it's kind of the setup of the whole story, but it's like what if Wolverine was possessed by the Phoenix instead of Jean Grey?
Interesting.
And it's like just a story of that playing out. And it's in the context of the previous events of the Fall of X.
Mhm.
So Jean Grey has knowledge of the future. She like knows how her whole life plays out,
Mhm.
but now as a teenager, so she's making key decisions to try and change things for the better.
Mhm.
And then so far, in each issue, it has not changed things for the better.
Yeah,
So
that'll happen.
Yeah, exactly. So there is kind of an element of her like it's self-reflective of her like looking at her life
Mhm.
and being like, what can I do to make things better, and just dealing with that. And there's like a little bit of a sense of fatality to it. Like, do I, because Jean Grey dies,
Yeah.
and
Whoa.
well, I told you last time we talked about that's her whole thing. She dies, and so that's like
I saw the movies. They made a movie out of the comic.
she dies multiple times in the
Sorry.
movies.
I don't have to read the book. When did those movies come out? That was like the early 2000s.
2000 when the first
Wow.
X-Men movie came out.
I feel like those just came out.
No,
Because
you're
I'm
wrong.
old.
Because you're old.
I'm an
Well,
old man.
they kept making them up into 2000.
They're still making them, are they?
No. Well, they're making the Wolverine
There's
movies.
going to be Wolverine and
Yeah.
Deadpool.
That's right. Wolverine's going to be in Deadpool. But the Logan movie, I think, was like officially the last one of Fox's X-Men. But I mean, when was that? 2006,
That was
17,
like
18?
5 or 6 years ago.
Like,
maybe
not that
more.
long ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, they had like almost 20-year run of making those X-Men movies. Mixed results.
I remember. So they all blurred into one movie for me.
Okay.
Like, I have no idea what happened in any of the movies. I know things happened.
That's true. That's true.
I know the Juggernaut's in it.
and he says the meme line.
He says the thing. And then Deadpool was the thing. And
Mhm.
there's Juggernaut in that. But it's not the same guy.
No, it wasn't.
That's all I got.
That's well. Anyway, all of that aside, one other thing I wanted to mention about this Jean Grey comic.
Yes,
Our friend and coworker Abby read the first issue of Jean
Mhm.
Grey, and she was a little more tepid on it than I was.
Really?
And I have to admit, it probably was because she probably didn't have any connection to what was going on.
Mhm.
Because me, as an old guy,
As an old dude.
as an old dude who's familiar
old
with
dude.
the old, I've read a lot of X-Men comics,
Mhm.
and I'm familiar with all the stories that
Yep.
first issue she kept flashing back to,
Yep.
and I thought it was cool the way
You're
she's
like-
revisiting
you're
it.
like, I read that
And I'm
years
like,
ago.
that's that scene, that's from
Mhm.
that issue. Abby had no connection to any of that as a
Ah.
brand new, very young reader.
Yeah.
And so she like had a hard time getting into it because she just didn't really get what all the. I feel like the story was a little bit more than just references,
Mhm.
but she didn't have that personal connection to it the way I do.
Yeah.
And so I'm very curious to see what she thinks of issue 2, because I do think it's more of a straightforward story of like one thing happening instead of several moments like the first
They're
issue.
getting away from the callback and then coming into
that is a
new
callback
storyline.
to a specific moment, but it's
Mhm.
just like the full issue is just about this one moment, and
Gotcha.
instead of the first issue was very much almost like a clip, like this happens,
Oh, the
and
clip
then
show.
not necessarily a clip show, but it did read a little bit like a clip show. Like this happens, and then this is
Right.
and then it kind of moved forward a little bit, and it changes here, and you move forward, it changes here, and whereas this, I feel like the pacing of it slowed down a little bit, and it was just like one solid story. So I'll be sure to ask Abby, and I will report back for when the next
We gotta
issue
get Abby
comes
on the
out.
stream
We
and have
do,
her
yeah.
explain-
Got to get her to come up
explain
here and
herself.
tell me how I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm too old.
Yeah.
All right.
We are too old.
Another comic. I like indie superhero stuff probably
Schlub.
more than most Marvel DC comics. This is a fun comic. It's a pretty it's a pretty like straightforward high concept. It was written by Ryan Stegman and Kenny Porter. Looks great. The writing is really solid. Just the idea is that the Superman-esque type of superhero has switched bodies with this fat schlubby dentist, and that's
Mhm.
where the name of the book, The Schlub, comes from.
Schlub.
But I'm enjoying this issue. This issue saw a lot of, what would you say, not like playing with a lot of tropes of the superhero genre.
Mhm.
There's some homages to classic
Oh,
superhero stuff.
A
You
good
kind of
homage.
see like in the design work, like even the superhero characters' design work, like there's just a lot of like classic superhero stuff in there. I see there's a little bit of Jack Kirby in some of these character designs here, like especially that, like the throne, like that's very much like a dark side on his throne, or the Eternals. So this is a fun book. Like if you like superheroes that are just like good stories and not vehicles for events, like
And not a lead up
and not
to
a lead up to
another-
another event. Like it's an actual story and not just a placeholder.
Wow.
I highly recommend the Schlub. It's pretty solid. I enjoy it.
Schlub it up.
Throwing some shade on this
mean,
episode.
It's
So I got,
calling them out.
we got, hey, I calls them like I sees them.
Calls them like you see.
I'm a whale biologist.
That's right.
We got a couple of number ones to talk about.
Excellent Futurama
So
reference.
I hope you like that. Yeah. So Flash number one comes out. We talked about at the top of the show.
Flash.
We talked about the Flash facsimile.
Yeah, he's
So
really
this
into
is-
science.
He is, and this
Yeah.
book leans into that.
So he got
Uh,
his powers because he had chemicals that got hit by lightning and then it
That's right.
splashed on him.
You
and
remember
went
it.
really, really fast. So, in
Yeah.
case anyone's wondering, I'm a little bit of a Flash expert.
I mean, you did retain the information that I told you like 30 minutes ago.
Yeah,
so
it's about 30 minutes ago.
I'm very proud of you. So this is written by Cy Spurrier, who I talked about.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that name
recently. He does right now he's doing the Nightcrawler pretending to be Spider-Man comic,
Mhm.
and so he's relaunching the Flash for the new Flash run for part of the Dawn of DC, which
Yeah.
is DC's attempt to
Like a reboot.
like not necessarily reboot, but just reset the line. So like
Mhm.
new number ones, so you know where to jump on to enjoy the series.
Yeah.
This is drawn by Mike Deodato Jr., who is a really, really, really good artist. Who I don't always love what he does. It kind of depends on what he's drawing, but he's in top form in this issue. I think it looks really solid. Very full pages. I like these page layouts that he's doing.
That's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, which I feel is appropriate for the Flash because the Flash
Yeah, he moves fast.
he moves fast.
because of the lightning.
So a lot of this issue, I feel, going into it as somebody who's actually not, as I said earlier, not a huge Flash reader.
Mhm.
I've never read an extended run of the Flash, so I was really curious to see how this issue would appeal to me. And it's a solid first issue. It's pretty dense. It gives you a good idea of kind of the setup for the character.
Yeah.
So this is another thing too. I've heard some people kind of complaining about this. This series is about Wally West.
Mhm.
There are several different Flash characters. There's like a lot. Like the Flash family is a thing,
Okay.
and that is kind of what the tone of this book kind of set. The theme, I should say, the Flash family,
Mhm.
because Wally has an actual family. Like he's got a wife
Right.
and kids.
Yeah.
And his kids all have superpowers. Like they
Yeah.
can tap into the Speed Force as well.
Oh.
So there's like a lot of balancing, like classic superhero tropes, like you're balancing your home life versus your superhero life.
There's,
Flash is like a superhero professionally, I think. Like he
Okay.
like works.
that's how he makes a living.
Like that's how he makes his money.
Yeah.
That's how he makes his money. It felt like there's a lot of stuff like that's peppered in here
Uh-huh.
for Flash fans
Uh-huh.
that if you don't really know, you kind of just accept it. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a new setup for the Flash or if this is just how it's always been. You know,
Mhm.
like there's not like an explanation.
all the facts.
Yeah, the Flash facts.
Yeah.
You do also kind of get a sense that you're kind of coming in to like an existing story because
Mhm.
there's a lot of those little. I don't want to say a lot. There's a few of those little editor's notes, like to understand what
geez.
they're talking
Yeah.
about. Go back and read.
There's too many of those. I'm not
So-
reading the book.
I do kind of feel like that's a problem when it's a new number one. Like
Right.
that's the whole point of it
It
being.
should just be a new story, and I don't have to know the old stuff.
Exactly. So this is my conflict when I like complain. I understand the value of having a new number one.
Yeah.
It's because you're signaling. It's a good jumping on point. But if your book is having a lot of like references to older series, then I feel like you don't need it to be a new number one, and just it should be continuing the series of what it
Yeah.
was. But you know what? There's people that get paid a lot more than me to make those decisions at Marvel and DC. So what do I know?
People love a number one.
They do. They really do.
It's
And
gonna be
I'll
worth money.
I'll
One day.
complain about it
So buy all of them.
endlessly.
Buy all the number ones here at Fantasy Books Today.
We got a lot of them. But I enjoyed this issue well enough. I talked about the theme, like there's a theme of family.
Yeah.
There's a whole thing again.
Flash Gordon,
No, not Flash.
Grandmaster Flash.
Grandmaster
also.
Flash. That
yeah.
would actually be pretty cool.
That's his dad.
There's kind of like a setup with his wife where she no longer has superpowers for a variety of reasons. Again, it's like alluding to previous stories,
Mhm.
and so she's kind of being left behind.
Uh,
Especially, and that's a metaphor because the Flash runs fast.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
like it means things.
It's deep.
It's deep. But you know what? I talk about that. I make fun of it sarcastically for being too serious. But
Mhm.
the main villain is Gorilla Grodd, and I
Ah.
do love a Gorilla Grodd
like Gorilla
appearance.
Grodd.
He's just a super smart gorilla. I'm trying to find a page of
Yeah,
him.
we need to find
He's wearing a helmet and he fights Flash. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So you got like they call it the gorillas, which I think I appreciate. I appreciate a good gorilla pun. Yeah. So like it's kind of tapping into
That's funny.
the fun silliness of the Flash, but there's like tonally, I think I've saw in some of the advertisement for this book, and you definitely get this feeling by the time you get to the end. And I'm not going to really spoil what happens at the end, but also there's not really much to spoil. It's if you've read a lot of first issues, it's exactly what you expect. It sets up a new villain. Yeah, it's a cliffhanger that like the splash page on the final page with the new villain, and you're supposed to go, "Oh my God, who is that?"
Oh, I gotta wait to read to
Right.
find out who this guy is.
But it definitely feels like Cy Spurrier, the writer, is balancing this theme of like family togetherness with like a little bit of cosmic horror. And so there's like a horror angle to it. It's less adventure and like swashbuckling fun, and kind of more into like things are about to get serious.
Like Cthulhu pops out.
You know what? It could be something like that. There's definitely that a little bit of that tone to it.
Good
like
squid-based villain.
Yeah. Like you don't really know what's going on in the Speed Force. Like maybe there's something hidden, like the source of his powers that's trying to get out.
Yeah.
So it's
this stuff's not natural, man.
It's not. You know, you're not supposed to run that fast. So I don't have much else to say about it. I thought it was it's a solid first issue.
It's a start.
I'm actually really curious. I'm probably going to talk to all the customers that come in that buy this.
Yeah.
If you're a long-term Flash fan, I want to know how you feel about this, because I have no basis to compare it. I don't know how.
You don't know Flash.
I don't know Flash, so I don't know if this is like a good representation of Wally West or a bad representation. I really have no idea. But yeah, solid first issue.
Great.
All right. Final issue to talk about. I always ask a coworker to pick out an issue. Jacob picked this out for no reason.
No reason at all.
No reason at all.
None at all.
I was probably going to read this anyway. It's Power Girl. It's a #1.
Power Girl.
This is another one.
What is her powers?
So, you're asking a big question there.
Is she like Superman?
So,
she like
in the context of this, yes, she's like Superman. She is Kryptonian.
Okay.
So,
well, that helps.
Yeah. So it's like there's some. The character has had a lot of different versions of her that have appeared over time. This current version, she is like basically got Supergirl's origin or some variation on it, where she's Kryptonian. She has Superman powers. That's pretty much it. And she's on Earth. You know, and so it's like she's part of the Superman family, which bothers me that she's called Power Girl.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So there's a whole like they're really pushing the Superman family with the line of comics, like in Action Comics especially. Yeah. Okay. So it's this issue is written by Leah Williams, who I've not read a ton of stuff by her, but she's done a lot of work at Marvel mostly. Like she did the Gwenpool character.
Oh yeah, we like Gwenpool.
So it's very lighthearted. There's a lot of like I don't know what I would call it, millennial humor to it, where everything has like a slight sarcastic edge to it.
A little quirky, maybe?
A little quirky, a little sarcastic.
A little edge.
I know here there's an insult that you would probably recognize.
That's your cue, dingus.
We hear that word a lot from some of our coworkers.
Dropping dingus.
That's like their go-to insult, you dingus.
You dingus.
So I did get a chuckle when I read that, because I was like, that's very age appropriate to the lady coworkers that I have.
Yes.
So, you know, it's another first issue. I read this like right after reading The Flash, and so I was just kind of like, it was hard to not be struck at the formulaic nature that a lot of superhero comics can fall into, where it's like an action movie where it's like the opening, you have your opening scene,
you kind of know what's going to
happen. You know what's going to happen at this point in the movie.
Yeah.
You know, your 3-act structure. It's like this happens, and you know, end of Act 2, they're at their lowest point, and then the rising action for Act 3. And there's a similar thing. I'm not saying that these first issues are like a 3-act structure, but there is a similar like vibe where they kind of all follow the same playbook, as it were. And so that's pretty much what goes on here. She meets a new villain. There's kind of a setup for like a mysterious ongoing plot. I don't want to spoil too much about it, but it is about her heritage as a Kryptonian. Oh. Superman does appear in it. Oh. He shows up to chew her out after having a fight with a supervillain, and kind of like move the plot along.
Sure.
So,
to remind you
that she's
that he's
Yeah,
Superman
that
and
she's like
part of it. Yeah,
part of the Superman family.
yeah, like related.
Yeah.
All right.
So it was a solid first issue.
That's a book.
Again, like I think I don't know if Power Girl's one of those characters. I don't know if she has any fans other than people that just like the costume. Like I'm not being sarcastic. It's a great costume. Like
sure,
genuinely, like it's like really perfectly designed. It's by Wally Wood, one of the best comic book artists of all time. It's a really cool design, and it's like a little kitschy. It's a little silly, but it's. I know it sounds like I'm only talking about one aspect of the costume, but like I like the shoulder cape thing that she has, like the color scheme, like a white costume that's not common.
That's kind of cool. You like what you like.
It's striking.
It's cool.
It's a good. There's a reason that this costume has stuck around for a long time. All right, I'm just saying.
What could that reason?
I don't know. It's probably the blue gloves.
It's pretty cool. It's the gloves.
It's the gloves.
It's the whole vibe.
The whole vibe
is immaculate.
Yes. It's a perfect window into your soul.
There you go. Windows. Go get
Power Girl. It's another one where I'm curious.
Number one.
I talk to our customers and find out who's digging it, how this checks out compared to like other Power Girl comics.
I've never heard anyone say, "Oh, I really like Power Girl."
So
it's always like Superman, Batman, and
she's kind of
Wolverine.
She's like a third tier DC character.
Sure,
and I say that partially
fairly new too, right? Like
no, she's been around for a while. Like she was Silver Age originally. Like she was 70s, I think, is when she first showed up.
Wow, okay.
She's been, but like she's always kind of had that problem where. Like DC has a lot of characters that are really redundant because they've acquired a lot of characters from other publishers,
right? Which are similar.
That's we talked about like Superman and Shazam. Yeah. Like it's like, what do you really need Shazam for when you have Superman? Yeah. And I love Shazam. Don't get me wrong, but like there's kind of that element to a lot of their characters, and I think Power Girl is kind of like that because like she wasn't always. I don't even know all of the various histories of her. She wasn't always like a Kryptonian. Like there was other versions of her where she was just like a weird Superman-esque character, and then at some point they're like, she should just be Kryptonian.
She's got the same kind of powers.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Exactly. But I don't know. So I really don't know. I'm not a Power Girl expert. You know what? Not yet. But I might study this costume a little bit more, and we'll see.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, that's the comic books for this week.
Yeah.
We did it. We had a good sized stack. Some were pretty cool. Some a little hit or miss, but you never know.
You never know.
I'm not
part of the fun of that's part of the fun of reading.
You figure it out for yourself.
Yeah. Reading it and then forming your opinion afterwards. Like I said, and if it's not good, you get to complain about it.
Yeah,
because you read it,
and you could complain on the internet.
That's right. And people who haven't read it don't have the right to complain about it.
Oh, sure.
So
people who haven't read it will positively never complain on it.
Yeah, no, never. Awesome. Nobody would ever do that.
All right. Well, buy your books here at Fantasy Books and Games. If you don't buy them here, please buy your comic books somewhere. You'll find this comic books for everybody.
Yeah.
You'll find something you like. And we will see you all next Tuesday.
Bye-bye.